The Oblivion Gallery is honored to be hosting the art of Gerry Williams, a professor of theater design at the University of Oregon, a painter, a sculptor, a writer, and storyteller. Gerry's got a collection of some of his stories along with some of his favorite artworks that are bound together in a new book called Aspen Flurries. Please welcome Gerry Williams.
A designer and a sculptor and a writer. And the writer is the last thing. And that's the part that's kind of odd because I failed freshman English in college 3 times in a row. But I was very immature as an 18-year-old, and the world had lots of more fun things to do. And I didn't come from a background of understanding pluperfect forms of the verb. But through the years, in my attempt to defend myself academically, I developed a skill at writing. So it wasn't over. And I've written a lot of short, some so short that they're really just captions to cartoons or pictures. And some of them are dreams. Many of them are quips, and some of them are memories. And some of them are memories that have been amplified. But it's just information. And then I illustrated them because Lynn over there insisted that I illustrate them. So I had a catalog of portfolio, and I just chose sculptures that worked for that particular story. And Renee suggested that I have this show as a kind of Valentine's Day theme. And so the book that's over here is full of little short stories and love poems because it's Valentine's Day. And I honestly think that writing and painting and singing and dancing are works of love. And I can tell you that undeniably because, you see, it doesn't pay you anything. And so you have to do it for some other reason, and people do. They go back and they continue to paint, they continue to sculpt, they continue to dance, they continue to write. Now that everybody has computers with spell check, it's almost impossible to get anybody to read your work because everyone in the world is an author. And yet, I would wake up from a dream and remember it and write it down. And sometimes those dreams were memories, and sometimes they weren't. So people who've read them found them charming because they were brief. You're not entering a long Tolstoy novel. In fact, I think the longest story is 3 pages in a small book. So and some are just captions. So I encourage you to buy one. It'll help me pay the bill. And it's also my own form of summation, in a way, closing shop. I can't pick up the clay anymore. I mean, these ceramic pieces weigh up to 75 pounds. And I tore both rotator cuffs, and it's impossible to pick them up. So I thought, my family, I have no children, no wife. I have sisters, and they're not that desperate to have my work. So I think it's time to get rid of them. So I do think, though, that that aspect of creativity is the process of loving. And that's very much Valentine's Day. Because it's always been my most favorite holiday. That and Halloween. Halloween because it gave me an excuse to explore my alternative personality and disguise, and Valentine's Day because I could approach secret lovers. And secret lovers have always been a part of my life. In fact, I was going to sing until I became ill the Doris Day song, Secret Love. I learned to swim to it, actually, in the Natatorium public swimming pool in Independence, Missouri, which is Harry Truman's hometown. And that's where I grew up. And I love lyrics. I love lyrics as poetry. I think George Gershwin was brilliant, but I think his brother Ira, who wrote the lyrics, was even more so. And so if you ever just want to relish the phraseology of Ira Gershwin, you just listen to a George Gershwin song. That's about all I have to say. Yes?
Can you tell us about your other books you have? You have Aspen Flurries, that's the storybook. And
Oh,
you
yes.
have Sorry About the Mess, and then you have a collection of sculptures.
Well, there's 3. This one, in fact, a box is sitting on my front doorstep. It was delivered today, but I had half a dozen come early. You know, it's printed in Philadelphia, so the snow, yes.
I think you should stand up and
Oh, yes. Eden is the subject in this.
Comparison? Comparison?
did he capture you?
And I then used the bust as the head in a full-length figure that was made that I can find it. I guess I could look at the table of contents, and it would be the Lion of Judah. Do you want to find it? It's it was at one time just behind it, but I don't know where it went to. You know, it's these 2 ladies made this happen. So they're.
So what is this story?
This is. I use the bust is ceramic, but it's done in a raku style, which means it turns iridescent black, life size. Actually, it's larger than the model, I think.
Yeah, that book is a collection of your sculpture. Your amazingly prolific sculpture. The way that you capture gesture and emotion is just phenomenal. And a story within each sculpture, you can look at it and just feel the story that's coming out of each one. That book is a collection of your sculptural work.
As a child, I did puppets, and then I got seduced into the theater, the world of theater from puppetry. And I didn't start sculpting until I was near retirement at the university, where I was a professor in theater. So, but for the last 15 years, I've sculpted quite a few pieces. One summer I did one a day. I was teaching myself how clay handles. You know, various stages of ceramic get more rigid as they dry out, naturally, and so you can do more delicate things, and how to build them around an armature. And then Aspen Flurries is really more short stories, but my supporters, that's Lynn and Kathy, insisted that I illustrate them. But I was too lazy to start drawing all over again, so I just pulled the other stuff from the other portfolios. And many of them were operable to the stories. And then this one was a performance I gave last January, the 25th at LCC. And it's a directory of my set designs, but only about 20, 30. I think I've done about 300. And you don't do that for money because nobody pays you that much.
Could I ask you a question?
Yes.
About the raccoon? My understanding is that in the glazing, they put paper around it and burns, and that changes the glaze to that area. So what was your, if it's a life-size sculpture, what was your container that you had to fire?
I have to be candid and honest with you that it was done by a ceramicist, not me. This is the firing.
Right. So he had some kind of giant.
Yes, as I recall, there was a metal trash can,
Yeah.
and it was filled with corn husks,
Right.
a flammable material.
But was it in two parts, or did he have a giant?
The bust is one piece.
I see.
And it's then that's I put on a plinth, a 6-foot walnut plinth, and then over that 3 dashiki
I see.
cones, one in copper, one in brass, and one in tin. And it's called Lion and Judah. And it only lasted in the gallery about 3 days. But in those days, too, I didn't know a value, you know. So it was purchased by a priest, I think, in the Coos Bay area. I always wonder where they end up years later, you know. But that's the way it goes.
Could you tell us a little bit about the stories with the 3 paintings?
Well, this one is, if you notice, there's a kayak in the sky.
Yes.
I happen to have absolutely a passion for Salt Creek Falls. And if you live here and you haven't been to Salt Creek Falls, you are missing a lot. It's only 1 hour drive east. And it's pretty simple. It's what's the Highway 58 up past Oak Ridge, and you go through a tunnel, and then there's a drive, and you end up in this kind of little park, and then you just walk 100 feet, and you're at a WPA viewpoint where the water is coming along and then drops 300 feet. It's super. And it's a great place to have a picnic on a warm summer day. And not so nice to go early in the spring, however, because it's cold. It's at 5,000 feet.
My son-in-law proposed to my daughter.
Ah,
Snowshoed out there.
yes. Well, I actually stared at that stream, Salt Creek, and it's quite clean and quite clear and quite rapid as it's coming along, and then it just, and I couldn't help but imagine a kayak with a parasail on top of it that would sail over. And so the story goes, he was so delighted that it actually flew until he realized there was no place to land. So,
That one's in Aspen Flurries.
yes,
The book.
it's in Aspen Flurries. And then this, I just come back from Santa Fe, New Mexico, when I did the panorama scenic of Santa Fe from the east, looking down into the valley. And I didn't mean to make it so detailed, but I was in one of those moods. I think maybe the drugs I take or something. I was, you know. So, and I feel that I was a scene painter for 40 years, painting sets for the Health Center when it first opened, and did all the big musicals there, and I could do almost a drop every 2 days. And we're talking about a painting that's 60 by 30 feet. It's a lot of paint. And, but I was young, and I stood on my feet for hours and hours and hours and painted with brushes and brooms and spray guns and sponges on my feet, you know, and on my feet. So you kind of dance around. And you can see the results. I mean, there are all pictures of them in there, at least 50 of them, not the 300 that I did, because I've been doing it since I was 24, since I got out of college. And I don't know why. I wanted to be a dancer, actually. I really did want to be a dancer. But in the 50s and 60s, little boys didn't get dance lessons. Not in Missouri. So art was acceptable. My father could never say, "This is my son, he's a set designer in the theater." He would say, "This is my son, the art teacher." Much more respectable. So, and so it's been a great life. I think I tell people I was born 78 years after the Civil War ended. And when you say it that way, it really makes you realize how antique you are. It's just, time is, and in my dotage and being a lecturer and a teacher, I feel called upon to pontificate about time and how quickly it passes. And it's mysterious how quickly you can lose 20 years like that. And my theory is if you stay in the same place, time goes faster. But if you move around the world, then you have various chapters, and they're entities in themselves, chapters in themselves. So the 50 years I've spent in Oregon is just one big thick chapter. It's hard to always earmark when and what, you know. So in 73, I went to the University of, I went to Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, which is sort of famous as a theater performing arts school. And then I went to University of Washington in Seattle for graduate work and got through in 4 quarters and went right into my first job, which was teaching at Rutgers, which was the State University of New Jersey. And I hadn't passed my French comprehensive. Pluperfect forms of the verb, you know, to be, être. So Purdue hired me without, but because I had been teaching at Rutgers, they assumed I had my master's degree, and I didn't feel needing to correct that assumption. And then, but it was a wonderful thing because I went from kind of like a liberal arts theater to a professional program at Purdue and worked with famous people, famous directors and famous movie stars that had gone back to the stage. And that was just for 2 years when Purdue said, you know, this doesn't really belong here. We're agriculture. What are you doing all this art stuff for? So seeing the handwriting on the wall, I became the resident designer at the Alley Theater in Houston, Texas, with a subscription audience of 26,000 for every production. So it was a big, big theater. They didn't pay anything, but I was, you know. And then after 4 years, I was so tired because I did summer stock in the summer when they were closed. I decided look elsewhere, and that's when the University of Oregon opened its doors for me. And that was in '73. I was 27.
Pretty different thing.
So, but I was a full professor by the time I was 45 because the university believed that professional accomplishment was comparable to publication. And I was designing for the Seattle Rep and Ashland and the theaters in Minneapolis and in Dallas. So they said, you know, so in that regard I was really lucky. Because I still couldn't spell.
Just so that you know, it was Bill Clinton who did all that.
Oh, really?
Bill Clinton who changed that, requirement to teach at a university level. That was Bill Clinton who did that. Believe it or not.
Wow, I didn't know that. But I'm apolitical for the most part until the last decade. Golly.
Do you have anything to say about pearl divers?
Oh, I'm not finished with it. I think that it needs to be, they need to be behind an intermittent forest of bamboo. I love Chinese brush painting work because I had a Fulbright in China teaching theater design in China, and of course became very much enamored of Chinese culture and Chinese brush painting, and so I think what I'm going to do is put a forest of bamboo between the viewer and the ladies. It would make my deceased mother happier. It's funny. What a rebel you are, and at the same time how conservative you are. You know, tits and ass, as it were. So
Focus is also sexy.
it's just it's. And Renee has been so, she hung the show and she carried it over because I've lost my capacity to move, which is disturbing to me in an emotional way because I used to be a dancer. And untrained though I was, I still loved to dance, and now I can't, so. But talking to you, my stomach stopped hurting, so maybe I won't go to the hospital.
Do you have any love stories that you'd like to tell us?
Oh yes,
Maybe like some love
thank you.
letters or a first kiss, or I know that you have a whole bunch of love stories.
They're all in there. Actually, my favorite is called No Stars Over Sugar Creek, because Sugar Creek was an oil refinery, a Standard Oil refinery, on the shore of the Missouri River as it entered eastern Kansas City. And it's the Missouri River, so there's huge bluffs that come up on both sides. And Highway 24 kind of skirts up from the basin and over the bluff and then heads to St. Louis on the eastern side of the state. This is before freeways, because I'm that old. And it was one of those nights at the A&W Root Beer where you could see forever. And Kansas City had some beautiful Art Deco skyscrapers that were lit, that turned from pink to lavender to blue at the very top crown, Kansas City Power and Light. And somebody was playing Wake Up Little Susie. And they brought our root beer floats. And of course it was just massive foam. And the guy that was driving leaned over and licked the foam off my lips. And I fell in love. So there are a few others of those. I kept missing buses in Greece because I couldn't read the alphabet. You know, the P's and W's and I just didn't even think to learn. I just, you know, so instead of going to Galaxidian, which is in my GAL, it was something else, V, X, and you know, whatever. And so anyway, the bus left, and I was in Delphi, and I could look down and see the village I was staying at. It was misty and it was far away, but if I could see it, I thought I could certainly walk there. It seemed to me that the horizon's only like 12 miles away in most cases. I don't know about how the mountains affect things. But rather than go down this very steep incline this way, which the road did, I went this way. And I jumped from rock to rock to rock. And it was wonderful. It felt like I was flying into the sun. And then I realized I wasn't traveling alone, that I dislodged some rocks. They were following me at a precipitous pace. And as we came across where the road switches back, a hairpin thing, there was a shrine, as there often are around Greek precipitous roads where someone was killed. And so I don't know if it was, but I just knew that I was going to be impaled by the wrought iron. So the rock, and it was extemporaneous. I didn't know the rocks were there until I got there. So I got to the rock and I did this Herculean leap and catapulted over the shrine completely and ended up in the highway itself, just as a vintage 1936 Rolls Royce almost ran me down. And the lady was quite charming, who was a passenger, not her driver. So that's, yes.
I'm sorry to take you off track. I have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
So, in the future, as your artwork enters the echelon of American artists, I'm curious to know, I must have read everything. I can look at your work and particularly your sculptures and see that you have a particular affinity for the male figure.
Yes.
I'm wondering how important it is to you, and why is it not more prominent in your writing, the fact that you are a gay American artist, and how important is it to you that when we're commemorating the life work of you, how important is it to you that that aspect of your experience be written or talked about, because you have not actually highlighted it?
Well,
So,
I talk about boyfriends in Aspen. I mean, I'm in Delphi because I have to ask the oracle a question. Will we get back together again? And a couple of other moments in the story, but for anybody who's sophisticated to kind of put two and two together, I'm reasonably conservative about jumping up and down on gay rights stuff. It's not that I'm ashamed of being gay. I'm not at all. In fact, my family is, but I'm not. And that's sad for them because they don't want me to talk or refer or anything dealing with gay. It's just they're made uncomfortable by it. And yet it's who I am. And they're just missing the boat. I'm certainly not the first gay artist. When you think of Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and dozens and dozens and dozens of others who had more difficulty and certainly not with writers either, like writers like Brain, you know, Wilde, Oscar Wilde, and there's the one that wrote Death in Venice. But famous artists, famous authors. I'm sorry, I can't just pop them up. But literary, it was not my major interest. It was visual. But even in my visual work, I like to illustrate. And I was talking to another artist who believes that illustration is a dirty word. And I can't imagine why you would think that, because it's a form of telling a story, and we all survive by telling stories. I have about 25 paintings of liturgical work at St. Alice's in Springfield, and I'm not even Catholic. But they wanted a crucifix, and since I had done the statue at City Hall, I provided it. And I thought, well, this is really great. My mom will be really pleased with this. She's already passed over, but I know she'd be happy with that. And I started doing, because the church was very modern, very contemporary, and it needed to be tarted up. It was hardly Catholic looking to me. It looked more like a Methodist church. And you know that in the Reformation period, they literally trashed all the artwork that wasn't part of the structure because they were afraid of the church members becoming worshiping iconoclastic or icons, praying to icons as opposed to, and so that's too bad because I mean an icon is a story, so I do, you know, and so. But that's a sculpture, and I have, and they don't have all the paintings out. They use them whenever it's a religious season for that particular theme. You know, like Easter or such. But I'm pleased, I'm overly pleased actually, that my life isn't in jeopardy because I'm gay, like it used to be. I mean, I only lost one job being gay, and they didn't know for sure, so they couldn't actually, you know. But that was in 1964. 65. We went a long way. And so.
How about the Kissing Bandit? I love the Kissing Bandit.
Well, no. I can't understand a word you said.
Kissing Bandit in the book.
Oh, the Kissing Bandit.
The Kissing Bandit.
Oh, the Kissing Bandit is a clever story about me, somewhat depreciating. I talk about my ability to teach in a small, undistinguished school. And my colleagues have never commented on that. But if you were going to study theater, the University of Oregon appeal to you? I don't think so, you know. But I loved living here. And then the health center opened, which gave me more freelance work, and I could freelance in Seattle and San Francisco and Los Angeles and all over the place, which I did, even Taiwan. So, and the university applauded that. My colleagues didn't always, but the university did, because it put me on the map. Anyway, I think that I'm missing my point here. I've got to,
Kissing Bandit. The
Oh, Kissing Bandit. So, this was a dream, but I employed some of my friends in the dream, my real friends. And it's, and how it all works is, I think, my favorite thing is when I say, so I went out and bought a gun. Shocks everybody. Because I'm not the type that would buy a gun.
Maybe you shouldn't give it away.
Oh.
It's one of the stories that kind of crosses the line between reality and fantasy. And as you're reading it, you're not quite sure where you are. With reality or fantasy, and there are twists and collections.
That's an aspect of learning.
So.
Do you have anything else, Gerry? Do you have anything else you'd like to share?
Only that art, all art requires passion and love. And it's appropriate for Valentine's Day. And I've said that before, but it's important to know that artists have to own, that's why they're doing it. If they didn't love it, why are they doing it? Because it's work. Believe it or not, it's work. I mean, how many hours putting on a leaf at a time on that, you know? And then saying, oh, I put on too many, so I wipe them off. And then put them back on. So.
That leads me to my next question, David. So in Buddhism, we have a term called ichinen. And ichinen represents a person's ability to live, a person's energy, how much energy a person has. It's called ichinen. And it's measured in things like the love that a mother has for his child, or the love that an artist has for their work. It's measured in, ichinen is like how much energy we have.
Mm-hmm.
So I get exhausted just listening to your history and how much you've done. Like, I get exhausted thinking about it. Not because I'm lazy, but because I don't have, obviously, as much life force for each of them as you have. The question I want to ask you is that if you never did another piece of artwork, are you satisfied with the amount of artwork that you've put out, the level of artwork that you've put out, and do you recognize that you've achieved an enormous amount of work in your lifetime?
I do acknowledge the latter, only because I listed it. I mean, every show is listed on the back page here. I got exhausted. But I was also 27, 28, 29. I was young. And I didn't realize that I would never not be. I have grave reservations about my stature as an artist. I have certain areas in my productivity that I am proud of. I can read a script and see where it should be done, where the environment of the play is. And but I'm also not able to always do what I would like to do. You know, it's has to do with intelligence.
So the stupid question is, are you satisfied with your body of work, or do you feel the need to do more?
I don't feel the need to do more. And that scares me, because I'm tired and I hurt. When you're painting a drop for Fiddler on the Roof, and there are 6 or 7 of them, and they're 60 feet by 30 feet, and you're painting them in a studio in Portland, and spray and mop and sweep, and I would come home and I couldn't walk up the steps. I couldn't walk up the steps. I crawled up the steps to get to bed. So I know that I worked hard. And of course, I was cheap. So
Where are those drops now? Where are those drops now? Did you paint?
they were all stored here in Eugene, and then some company in Arizona, when the Ed Dragonzino decided to sell out his theater stock, they came up with 6 or 7 huge semi-trucks and loaded all the sets on it.
So they're being used in Arizona.
And then they got a call when they got into California that the company was going bankrupt and they wouldn't get paid for them. So that's the, yeah. I see one or two now and again. I came home from a tech rehearsal at the University Theater and turned on a little television set and plopped down in bed, and there was My Fair Lady that I designed, and only it was being used in a Mercedes commercial. And I thought for sure I would get a car out of that, but no. Yeah.
Have you ever done yours? Outdoor?
Yeah, trying to think where. More in people's homes than outside. I really do prefer sculpture, actually, So I stopped painting after I was 50 and just focused on sculpture.
Can I ask you a question about your sculpture? You were saying that as it dries, you can do finer things without armature?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, it's discovering clay. Clay is a magical thing, It's clay is like powdered sugar. It's like sand made into powder. It's silica. And you mix it with water and mix it up, and it's kind of like, And as it begins to dry, it shrinks as the water leaves the clay, and it also gets rigid. So it's stronger. Now, there comes a point where you can't work it anymore because it'll break.
Right.
And I mean, you try and keep it at its perfect hydration with wet cloths and things and mists and such. But then, and there's some really rather incredible ones in the book. Rio Rita is in that, and I hated cutting up my sculptures to get the armature out, because you see, you cannot fire metal. You can't fire an armature that doesn't, but you can fire paper and cardboard. And so these are all made with tubes of paper towels. And sometimes, because they don't know how thick the clay is anymore, after squeezing them into shape, they get too thin and break. And then I patch them together with epoxy.
Do they break in the oven, or they break before the oven?
They're more fragile, I would say, after they're fired, because they're vitrified, they're glass. The process of the heat melts the little particles of sand in the clay, and they become like glacious vitrification. And so a knock in there, And these are heavy. To have something that's fragile and heavy, you're asking for it. So, but it was great fun. And I didn't even start that process until my last couple of years teaching at the university. And I audited some classes. So, thank you so much.
Gerry's work is for sale. His sculpture is amazing. It's available. His paintings, if you can't afford that. The books are for sale, $26 each. Please support Gerry. Thank you for coming to the Oblivion Gallery. We have a love letter writing station in the inner room. If you'd like to write a love letter, take it with you or leave it on the altar anonymously. So, thank you for being with us.
Once I had a secret love that lived within the heart of me. All too soon, my sacred love became impatient to be free. So I told a friendly star, the way that dreamers often do, just how wonderful you are and why I'm so in love with you.